YouTube, what is going on? Your boy Young Mustard is back with another video, and I'm here to talk about the trade deadline, but I'm not here to talk about the winners or losers or about the Cavs basically trading away their whole roster for younger versions of themselves. Nah, I am here to talk about the Celtics and what they didn't do, and if it's a mistake that's going to come back to haunt them, and that obviously is them not trading for Anthony Davis. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, and if you're not, you better go follow me. You guys, I predicted that the Celtics would eventually give in and trade for Anthony Davis. Now, obviously, it is a bold prediction. It's not like I, had all the sources behind it or anything like that. It was just something that I believe the Celtics should do, and it's something that I believe would put them over the top of the Cleveland Cavaliers no matter what the Cleveland Cavaliers did, because they really have no answer for Kyrie or Anthony Davis. And then in the future, let's say they did beat the Celtics this year, they would not have an answer for Kyrie, Anthony Davis, and Gordon Hayward. Now, obviously, they did not do that, so that leaves the question, was this a mistake for the Boston Celtics and the New Orleans Pelicans? Now, for starters, let's start off with the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, the New Orleans Pelicans found themselves in a very peculiar situation to start off this season. We all thought, and yes, if you didn't think this, you must be blind and you must not know basketball. We all kind of jumped on the train of DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis a bit too early, and we jumped to conclusions on what they could do even in their first season playing together. Obviously, playing together the first season, they had a little bit of issues here and there, but this season they were off to a great start. They were a top 6 seed in the Western Conference. They were winning games. Boogie was going crazy, racking up 20-20 games. Also, Anthony Davis was going crazy, racking up 40-20 games. They were phenomenal together this season. But obviously the big news hit that DeMarcus Cousins had tore his Achilles, and it was in a contract year where he was having the greatest success of his whole entire career. He was playing for a playoff team. He wasn't really getting in trouble. Technicals were not really bothering him like it always has in his career, obviously with the attitude issues in Sacramento. He loved playing in New Orleans. He loves playing with Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis loved playing with him, and obviously being on a contract year, this is really going to hurt the amount of money that he's going to receive next season. Now, obviously, that does not only affect DeMarcus, but it affects the organization of the New Orleans Pelicans, because going forward, what are they going to do with Anthony Davis? Because while I do think that the Pelicans will be the team to re-sign DeMarcus Cousins, I do not think that Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins should have ever really been together in the first place. Obviously, I did think that this duo was going to work if they added some perimeter players, but that's the problem. They have no other perimeter players. Solomon Hill, Rajon Rondo, and also Drew Holiday, those are probably their best perimeter players. And Solomon Hill is someone that should be coming off of the bench, let's just call it what it is, but he's in their starting lineup. And let's just call it what it is. When you have 3 max contract players, they should all be superstars. But when 2 of them are big men and they can't get the ball as normal as some perimeter players, you need another perimeter superstar, and that leads into Drew Holiday. Let's just call it what it is. Drew Holiday is a solid player, but he's not a superstar. Hell, he's not even a star. At best, he's just a good quality starter, and for him to be making that much money is just ridiculous. Now, I understand why they did pay him the money, because they kind of had to. They had no other option. No one was really considering them. When you look at Chris Paul, he was probably the point guard that a lot of people thought would possibly sign with the Pelicans and make a little return back to New Orleans, but it's clear that he loves playing in Houston right now. So at this point in time, the Pelicans have put themselves in such a horrible predicament at this point, because yes, they are good enough to get into the playoffs. They're not good enough to make a deep run. They're not good enough to really beat any quality teams and get to the finals or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, I do think this team, if it had stayed healthy and DeMarcus Cousins didn't get that Achilles injury, I thought that they could possibly upset a team in the first round, because honestly, aside from the Golden State Warriors, no other team is really safe whenever you have 2 twin towers such as DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis in the paint to beat this team. they could possibly had upset a team like the Rockets or the Spurs or the Timberwolves or Thunder, if you consider the Thunder an upset in that book. So at the end of the day, the Pelicans kind of have to come to the realization that is a 6th seed really worth it? Because that's probably their ceiling. And with the West continually getting better, with teams like the Lakers possibly adding free agents, how much more do you trust this organization if you're DeMarcus Cousins or Anthony Davis, or even if you're just the people in the front office? Because that's your ceiling. A 6th seed, a 1st round or 2nd round at best exit, because you're not making the conference finals, and most likely out of everything, you're definitely not making the finals. So at the end of the day, it is what it is when it comes to the Pelicans. They have a decision to make. Was it worth it keeping someone like Anthony Davis locked in for the books? And what if DeMarcus Cousins leaves? What are you going to do about that? Because let's say the Pelicans don't want to give him the biggest contract in the world due to his ankle injury. What if another team wants to? What are you going to do about that? They have a decision to make. Do you want to keep Anthony Davis and just waste away his prime years and then let his contract expire because he will leave? Or do you want to trade him now while he's in his prime, high trade value? This is probably the best trade value that you're going to get for someone like Anthony Davis, who's a top 10 player. Because when you look at NBA history, there have been times where they had to trade their best player because there was really just nothing they could do with him. And when you consider the fact that you're in a market such as New Orleans, you're not in LA or Philly, some big time market where you can attract marquee free agents, you're in New Orleans. You didn't even get Boogie by signing him. You got Boogie via trade. So, Pelicans, you may have made a big mistake, but it may not be as big as you may think. Now, on the other flip side, we have the Boston Celtics. Now, everybody has loved watching the Boston Celtics this year, and the primary reason, let's just call it what it is, it's Kyrie Irving. Let's just be honest here. Kyrie has been sensational this season. He has been phenomenal, and I think a lot of people also would agree that not only Kyrie has been sensational, but Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Marcus Smart off the bench has been solid from, time periods, of course, and also Jason Tatum. Because Jason Tatum has come and plugged in on a Eastern Conference championship contender. For the conference, of course, not for like the NBA, but he's plugged in on a championship contender in the conference. And I think that is something that a lot of people overlook. But when it comes down to the Boston Celtics, they kind of have to ask themselves, should we have kept Jason Tatum or should we have traded him for Anthony Davis? Now, honestly, I believe the answer is yes. They should have traded Tatum for Anthony Davis, and here's why. For starters, Jason Tatum, don't get me wrong, he has been phenomenal this year. The fact that he can come in and contribute to a championship contending team in the Eastern Conference, at least, the fact that he can do that as a rookie shows that he is a great player on the rise, or at least he has great player potential. But we have to face the reality that, for one, players can decline in their sophomore seasons, and two, he's playing for Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens kinda can inflate your numbers a bit if you play in his system. Just ask Avery Bradley, just ask Isaiah Thomas, just ask Jay Crowder. All of their numbers have dipped from last year. If you are not in the Brad Stevens system, your numbers are not going to look like those players. Now let me explain. When you have someone like Isaiah Thomas and Avery Bradley and Jay Crowder, they played in a system that inflated their numbers. Isaiah Thomas was the primary factor with a lot of great defensive players around him. That's why he could inflate his offensive numbers. Jay Crowder, not the greatest three-point shooter, but in Brad Stevens' system, he clearly looked like he could shoot at a great to maybe even an elite level one day. Then you look at Avery Bradley. His offensive firepower was never really that great, but because of Brad Stevens' system, it looked better than it was advertised. Now don't get me wrong, all three of those players are not bums, but the system can make you look better. Now don't get me wrong, I do believe Jason Tatum has great player potential. Like I said before, he was still the 3rd pick in the draft. Somebody was going to think he has superstar potential. So at the end of the day, do you think that someone like Jason Tatum or someone like Anthony Davis is who you want in that system? because when you look at someone like Anthony Davis, he is already established in the league. He's a top 10 player, arguably top 5. He definitely is top 5 based on talent, and he has the potential to arguably be the best player in the league within just a few seasons. I mean, sure, you have players like Giannis, Ben Simmons, but Anthony Davis has already established himself as a bona fide superstar, and the talent is limitless. So when you look at someone like Anthony Davis who's already established, do you want to put your money on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and all those other young bucks, Terry Rozier? Or do you want someone like Anthony Davis, who is dominating the West, by the way? So imagine him coming to the East, where he has to play against someone like Kevin Love in the Eastern Conference Finals. And a lot of people may be saying, oh, well, the Cavs still could have beat them even if they got Anthony Davis, which I wouldn't even be mad if you thought that. But let's say next year they get Gordon Hayward, because Gordon Hayward will be coming back. There will be no doubt in anyone's mind, or at least there shouldn't be any doubt in anyone's mind, that a lineup of Kyrie, Gordon Hayward, and Anthony Davis could not beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, whether LeBron stays or he goes, because I believe that lineup will be so deadly that they could beat any team in the East, and they will be the favorites from then on out until all those players start to age. So in my personal opinion, when you look at Anthony Davis, I don't think it's a huge mistake, because Anthony Davis is on contract for a few more seasons, but it is a mistake that they could regret if they don't get Anthony Davis in the future, because Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who knows how great those players are going to become, because at the end of the day, they are still young players. Jason Tatum has never seen the playoffs. Jaylen Brown has seen the playoffs, and we saw what Jaylen Brown did last year, and we're going to see what he does this year with a bigger role. And Jason Tatum, we'll see what he does, because he's going to be starting in his first year in the playoffs. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't say this is the hugest mistake in their, franchise's history or anything like that, but it is a mistake. And if they don't get Anthony Davis later on down the line, it may be something that they regret. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and add me on Snapchat. Make sure you subscribe, because I know it's been a while since I posted a video, and hit the bell next to my name, because I'm going to be more active. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. We out. Peace. Have a great day.
In a rush, girl. It's just us, girl. Let me know what's up, girl. What's up, girl? Cause I'm gonna put it down, beat it up, go down, beat it up, take it down, 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 down. I'ma beat it up. Let me switch up the tempo. Let me switch up the tempo.